Hello and welcome, or welcome back. We are currently in the historic, very beautiful city of Edinburgh up in Scotland. We've been here a day and a half, but we've got another day and a half worth of activities. There's still lots to see and do. Our first stop today is going to be Edinburgh Castle. It's kind of a must if you're here, so I am super excited to go there. And yeah, let's go. We have made it to the castle. Today in Edinburgh it is the 10k run, so you can probably see lots of good healthy people getting warmed up for their run today. But we're going to head into the castle in a minute. Now this place is like so much history here, dates back so far. It's said to be the most besieged place in Great Britain and was a royal residence since at least 1093, and there's a lot to see in there. So we're just waiting for the castle to open. We've got our tickets pre-booked and then we'll get inside. The castle sits proudly on top of Castle Rock, an extinct volcano, but do expect it to be a bit windier and colder up there than on the streets in Edinburgh below. Audio guides are available to hire, which provide detailed information for you to listen to while you explore. The portcullis gate was built in the 1570s as the main gateway into the castle and originally had 3 pairs of gates as well as the portcullis. The Argyll battery is a 6-gun battery built in the 1730s. The battery is also a great spot to take in and enjoy the impressive views of the city. Behind me just here is the legendary 1 o'clock gun, fired every day at 1 o'clock. Except for I think it's Christmas Day, Sundays, which today is Sunday, so I'm afraid we can't see it being fired, and Easter. First introduced in 1861, its purpose was to aid ships navigate, as the crew would know the exact time. Clocks back then were not very accurate. Behind me here is St Margaret's Chapel. It's the oldest surviving part of the castle, built in about the 1130s by King David I in memory of his mother, Queen Margaret, and who later became St Margaret. In the 1500s, the chapel stopped being used and was forgotten. Luckily though, it was rediscovered in 1845 and restored. Behind me here is Meg, the ultimate weapon of mass destruction for its day. It arrived in Scotland in 1457 as a wedding gift for King James II. The curved half-moon battery was built after the Lang Siege in 1573 and wraps around the ruins of David's Tower. David's Tower was built in the late 1300s and once stood over 30 metres high. It was the royal residence for over 100 years, but it fell crashing down at the end of the Lang Siege. One of the buildings off Crown Square is the Royal Palace. Here you can see the Honours of Scotland and the Stone of Destiny. However, strictly no photographs inside, so I can't show you them today. Another building off Crown Square is the Great Hall. It was built in 1512 for James IV as a place for royal ceremony and banquets. If you look upwards, you will see the magnificent original timber roof. This is definitely the most impressive feature of the hall for me. You might also notice the iron-barred grid above the fireplace on the right. This is a laird's lug, a sort of peephole where the king could spy on his guests. The castle also has prisons of war. These prisons are not what we think of as prisons nowadays. They are damp and drafty stone vaults. They held prisoners of war from the 7 Years' War, the American War of Independence, and the Napoleonic Wars. But they were cold.
Definitely.
So we've just come out of the castle. We spent, I think, about just over 3.5 hours there. You could spend longer if you want to read about every exhibition in there. There's a lot to see in there. And if you like military history, then there's a lot on that, a number of exhibits and museums in there. The views over Edinburgh are incredible. A lot to see and do here. Very enjoyable. So after that, we are pretty hungry. So I think it's time for us to go get some lunch and head on to our next stop. Our next stop is Gladstones Land. It is run by the National Trust of Scotland, I should add, and it is a traditional tenements house. Number of stories, although they have refurbished it, set it back out as it would be in the past. Each floor is from a different time, so I think it's going to be quite interesting to see the different timelines and how people lived. The tenement buildings in Edinburgh date back to the 17th century and have been described as the first skyscrapers in the world, as some reach 15 stories high. Gladstones Land is one of the oldest surviving tenement buildings on the Royal Mile. It was originally built in 1550, but in 1617 the building was bought and redeveloped by Thomas Gladstone. The second floor that we see here is set out as a draper's shop that belonged to William Dawson and Elizabeth Pillans in 1766. They were both wealthy and would have sold high-quality fabrics, ribbons and accessories to middle and upper-class women. The tenement buildings were built in response to a housing crisis. Edinburgh's population was vastly increasing and there was not enough space. The tenement buildings could house many large families and could be constructed quickly, although often poorly built, which led to some later terrible disasters when the buildings collapsed. The first floor displays wealthy merchants, John Ruddock and Margaret Noble's living area in 1632. They also had a shop on the ground floor and a tavern in the basement. They had expensive furniture and the hand-painted ceiling is stunning. Gladstones Land was fascinating, and it was very interesting to view how these tenement buildings may have once looked on the inside. Although Gladstones only displays how the wealthier side of society lived, many living in these tenements were incredibly poor and had much worse living conditions. We are back at the apartment. After Gladstones Land, the plan had been to go up Colton Hill and show you the monuments up there, but things don't always go to plan. The heavens opened. You might see that I am soaking wet. Yeah, and very windy too, so that was kind of a write-off. Instead, we went on a tour. It was the Mary King's Close tour. great tour, very interesting, but I already knew before we went, and one of the reasons we weren't going to do that is there's no photography whatsoever, but I do recommend it. Very entertaining with some history on the underground city there. And anyway, so yeah, still got soaked just from going from the Royal Mile back to Princes Street. So I think right now I'm going to get a hot drink, maybe a hot bath, probably a good idea, before we go and get some dinner in a bit. It's the final morning of our Edinburgh trip, sadly. So our last stop is going to be at Craigmillar Castle. We can see behind me. This is just a couple of miles outside the city centre. It's really quiet here today. I only saw one other car in the car park, so I think we might have the castle pretty much to ourselves, which will be pretty cool. So the medieval castle was built, well, it was completed by 1425, they think. It's a little bit sketchy, some of the information there. And yeah, let's go have a look. The oldest part of the castle is the 4-storey tower house, which forms part of the centrepiece of the castle and was completed by 1425. The east and west ranges were constructed in the 15th and 16th centuries. The castle was held by the prominent Preston family until 1660, when it was sold to Sir John Gilmore. If you would like to know more about the castle's history, then check out our video on the history of Craigmillar Castle. Wow, people must have been very small. Even I have to duck down to get through these doors. Stone spiral staircases. Someone who loves castles so much, I'm not a fan of these. But it's gotta be done. Which way to go? 1, 2, 3, 4. Try this way first. This place, it is like a maze. Looks like we're going up again. And more steps. Let's have a look on this level first. Ooh! Wow. I'm not sure they had those in medieval times. It was here in 1566 that Mary, Queen of Scots, came to stay after she'd fallen ill after the birth of her son, the future King James VI. Okay, well, let's make our final descent, hopefully. Wave to the camera. You gotta come up here. The views are amazing. Over that way is Edinburgh, and right in the distance is Edinburgh Castle. Despite being so close to the bustling city centre of Edinburgh, the castle has a very tranquil feel. So if you want a break from the busy city centre and enjoy history, then Craigmillar is the perfect place. The castle is now looked after by Historic Scotland. Standard adult admission is a very reasonable £7 at the time of our visit in 2022. There are also discounts for Historic Scotland, Young Scot, English Heritage, Cadw and Manx members. We have really enjoyed visiting Craigmillar Castle here today. The ruins are like a maze and there's so much to go and look around, up and down, the views from the top there. Incredible. Sadly though, this is our last stop in Edinburgh. We're not going to have to go home. Don't want to. I've completely fallen in love with Edinburgh. It's so beautiful, so much history here. I will definitely come again someday. So I guess that just leaves me to say I hope you've enjoyed this video, maybe found it useful. And if you have, please do give us a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe for more videos in the future. And I hope to see you again soon on another adventure.